First. All right. If everyone can see us, you never know with this webinar technology, but I'm Dr. Mac Yeller. Thank you so much for being here. Today we have an amazing webinar planned for everyone. It's called Going Beyond the Blog, Using Content to Grow Your Practice, specifically your optometry practice, of course. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Covalent Careers, formerly New Grad Optometry, and today I have with me the head of content marketing at iCare Pro. Zvi Pardes is an optometry marketing expert and head of content at iCare Pro, as I said. Zvi's driving mission is to give practices the tools and strategies they need to achieve their growth goals and continuously scale up.
That's
Scale
right.
up, baby. When not crafting content or working with practices, Zvi likes to garden, read, and spend time with his family. It's great to spend time with you this morning. I love what iCare Pro is doing. The folks at iCare Pro are certainly experts in the field, and I think that anyone watching is going to gain so much today. I love this topic. I'm a content marketer at heart. That's how we built all this great content. And so for anyone who's listening, we're taking questions. Feel free to chat in. We're going to go into presenter mode. Zvi, anything you want to add before we show the slide deck?
Let's jump right into it. Everything is there. And I love questions. The better the question, the happier I am. So
I'll ask a few if need be.
Fantastic.
All right. Feel free to share and we'll begin.
Let's do this. Is my screen showing up okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So today we're going to talk about content at iCare Pro. Really the number one way that we know that you're going to be able to scale up your individual practice is through content, and that can take lots of different forms. So we're going to jump right down into it. And different practices are going to have different content strategies depending on the kind of practice you are or the kind of practice you're aspiring to be. So without further ado, I'm just going to, I think this we already did, so we can go right into here.
I like that photo. I like that photo.
Let's, the first thing to talk about is where are patients finding you? As a practice, how do you think most patients are finding you? What's sort of the myth? What's the reality? There's a wide variety of opinion on that. I'll give you a hint up ahead. It is online. It is on Google. We'll jump into then SEO and the role that content plays in SEO. We're not going to get too technical because the most important part of content today is not, the getting overly technical. It's about the depth of what you're putting out there about your practice and about the services you're doing. So, and that's why content is so important. But not all content is created equal. There's the reason that this is called Beyond the Blog. Certainly there are things that go beyond the blog, and we're going to jump right into that. And I'm going to touch on Google reviews. It's not exactly content, but it does jive with content in a really important way. So let's jump right into this. So what is SEO? For those who don't know or want a refresher, it stands for search engine optimization. And that means having the things in place, particularly locally, that Google takes as signals that you're the most reliable, relevant search result to show for a search query. When someone's looking for like a local service provider, the locality of that matters quite a bit. So it is important to have, an up-to-date and optimized website and an up-to-date and optimized Google My Business listing. And if you're not sure what any of these things are, at iCare Pro, we have that information on our website. We've got lots of ebooks. You can check it out. We're going to super focus in on content though, assuming that, your basic site structure is in place, that your online listings are in place, that your name and address and phone number are consistent across the board. Those are some of the basic building blocks of SEO. But really, if you want to take the way your practice appears on a local search to the next level, it's going to be about that content. And more Google is striving to show is judging the most relevant results based on how authoritative and in-depth your content is. The days of, keyword cramming are long gone. No one wants to see that. It certainly isn't going to build trust amongst potential patients. So really high quality content is where it's at. So obviously with anything that you want to do in terms of growing your practice, it's always this balance between time and budget. Producing content is not particularly expensive and it has extremely high yields. So if you're going to be doing one thing to work on your practice marketing, content should be it. Absolutely should be it. So that's sort of the global picture. Um, so why is content so important? And what do we mean by content? Well, content is anything that appears on your website, be that, written text, be that video. We're going to jump into these different things. But the basic reality is at least 80% of people, this is based on a 2017 study. It's probably even more now. When they look for health information, they look for health service providers. They're doing it online. And what I mean by online is if you're in the United States, that's 90% of the time, that's going to be on Google. So we're going to super focus in on Google because that's where you're getting your biggest bang for your buck. And generally what works for Google will also work for Bing and Yahoo or any other thing that 3-4% of your potential patient base is using. But what does content do? Content powers your Google rankings. It really does. And the more you can provide on the given topics you want to appear for, the better you're going to rank. That's just hands down one of the basic principles of SEO that you should be aware of as a local practice. It's also going to establish your expertise. And when we get into things that are a little bit beyond, eye care, eye exam, eye clinic, really general comprehensive exams, that expertise is going to be really, really important. Building trust is going to be really important. The way you interact with a potential new patient who's visiting your website is really important. If you're trying to market things that they are less familiar with, or there's a bigger trust gap, optometric medical specialties being one of them, vision therapy, scleral lenses, any of these things that you first need to educate them on. You need great content to bring them in, but then it needs to be great enough to educate, engage, and convert at the same time. So this happens to be, taking a look at one of our practices, just as a breakdown, so you understand a little bit more about what's going on. As I mentioned earlier, this practice, per month had this many Google hits, 1,500, a little over 1,500, and you can see this sharp decline of traffic being driven to the website from Yahoo, Bing, Yelp, or Facebook. I know, particularly for practices on your end, Matt, in Southern California, there's a slightly higher reliance on Yelp. But even there, it's going to be overwhelmingly Google. And putting content into Google isn't going to cost you a lot of money the way funneling money into Yelp that seems to go nowhere might go down. So, personal take on it, but I think the numbers don't lie here.
Yeah, and Google's getting a lot stronger, I think, with what they're doing with local search and specifically the Google My Business abilities, how you can appear with both ratings, reviews, both through Google Maps browser or app, which is getting a lot better, and through desktop. But yeah, 100%. And Google's starting to really get a lot of traction in that area. So 100% agree with this slide.
Wonderful. Yelp also doesn't send traffic to your website. So something to be aware of, especially if you're paying Yelp for services. The fact that they're not driving traffic to your website makes it very hard to track how well it's actually doing and what your return on investment is when you're paying for Yelp corporate. And if you're not paying Yelp, it doesn't matter how many great reviews you have. So, someone will show up ahead of them. So, but I don't think it matters. Google's where it's at. So here's the basic, flow of a potential new patient when they're making a search. And this is a Google search. It could be eye clinic near me, but it could also be, I'm dizzy after concussion. It could be, I have keratoconus. Are there contacts that can work for me? It could be a search for the most esoteric optometric service you offer, or it could be the most basic local, I want an eye doctor so I can get my prescription. But regardless of what that is, it's your content that's going to shape how well you're doing. They're then going to see your reviews. They're only then going to choose, based on those, likely the reviews, to go visit your website. Sometimes they'll contact you directly from your Google listing on the map results. They can click to call. That happens more and more and more. But if they are going to your website, they're seeing your website, they're seeing your homepage, seeing your brand page, they're seeing what your brand is all about. They're seeing the specific topics that they're interested in, and that's what's going to lead them to make that call. And it's only afterwards that, what's going to happen from the lobby through to the lane, that is going to, come into effect. But if you want them in the lane to begin with, this top half is really, really where you're going to nail it.
Yeah. And Zvi, just for a quick anecdotal story. When I was seeing patients out in San Diego, I did a blog article on our site about how the dry weather in San Diego can affect dry eye. And there's a number of websites ranking far better than we were for the topic of dry eye. But what we were going for was kind of this long tail, what they call a keyword, of those specifically wondering why their dry eye is worse in this particular city. There's something called the Santa Ana winds here that kick up and make everything dry. And so, when I wrote it, I used those keywords, and what we found was probably about 3 different bookings came in from that, but it was patients with severe dry eye who needed quite a lot of treatment and management, and they're profitable patients. So, I like that you're detailing that there. And I think, I'm sure you're going to get into that, but for those wondering kind of what do I put out there? What do I write about? We can go in that direction later, but I've seen this work, and that's a great flow that you've got written up there.
Absolutely. And, it's, you touched on some really crucial topics. One is that if you got optometric specialties, those are high revenue, and there's far fewer practices putting content out there at all. And the second is you've put really locally relevant content on there. You've made it about where you live, and that is crucial to making content work for you. Even if it's dry eye as a concept is universal, the fact is environmental factors matter. You make that relevant to someone who's searching, and they're not searching necessarily for a dry eye doctor, as you see here. They might be searching for a question just like that, and that's how you're going to grab them, because Google will always try to bring the most relevant answer to the query you're actually putting in. And this is why like long form content is so effective, whereas just a list of services that you have might have worked a little bit back, but it definitely doesn't work now. And this is, what we have here is an example. When you first make this search, eye doctor for dry eye in Tulsa, you'll see that the first things that Google shows after perhaps a couple of ads are they're pulling these results from the maps that show up right before the organic search on a Google search. And right there, you see how many reviews the place happens to have as well. So Harold Eye Care Downtown happens to be one of our clients here. And, the fact that they have 56 reviews, it's far more now, but this is about a year and a half old, this screenshot, at 4.9 versus 29 at 3.5 or 8 at 4.0, that makes a significant difference for like where particularly millennials, but just about anyone who's paying attention is going to choose to go. That's the place where I'm going to get the patient experience. And so really Google is really where it's at in terms of all these things coming together, as we've mentioned. And as I've said and touched on already, it's authoritative, localized content that is going to work. So I see lots and lots of optometry websites in my line of work, obviously. And one of the things that we see very often is practices with a very high level of expertise and specialization have very few pages. There's not a lot on there. They just list, oh, we do the following things. We treat glaucoma, we do comprehensive eye care, and we sell glasses. And okay, lists don't do much because everyone under the sun has lists of content. So that's not going to impress the Google gods very much. And as I mentioned, stuffing it with keywords anymore is a big no-no. Maybe in 2006, that was really the way to get ahead. But, the Google algorithm is really now prioritizing human content that's meant for humans by humans. And it's getting quite good at that. The days of sort of like hiding keywords and shoving keywords in and just a crazy keyword density are long gone. It's not to say you don't want the keywords in there, and we're going to touch on that in these slides, but that, it's got to be natural and it's got to be real. And that's something in general, as doctors, you're doing that all the time with patients. They ask questions and you answer. That's part of the patient experience you're providing. The struggle is sometimes committing that to the written word in that same style, but that's really what's going to work and appeal to that potential new patient who's finding you online. So blogs are great. They used to be the gold standard, but they're kind of short form. They're great for a small snippet kind of question. Just like Matt, just like you mentioned, like a blog that's specific about a very local specific condition that might contribute to dry eyes is going to be great. But it'll be even better if it connects to a larger framework of content on dry eye in general. The same goes for, what do I do if I have a scratched eye? What do I do? What options are there if you're a hard to fit contact wearer? If you have severe dry eyes, can you wear contacts? Why is it worth going to the optometrist rather than taking a refractive exam online in some states? Like stuff like that are popular questions. If you're the local supplier of that answer, you will be found. And that's one of the great things blogs can do. But when you get to pages, this is where you have a chance to really expound on the things you do as a practice that are important to you, that are your growth points. So I'm going to take a step back then, and let's jump right into, well, where do you start? You've got a basic optometry website. Maybe it lists some of the general optometric services you have. It's not yet so interesting. Hopefully it's branded nicely. It's got some nice images of your practice, but there's not much there yet. So let's take a look into this. And a lot of you are probably wondering this, like, where do I even get started? The basic question to ask yourself is, what kind of patient do you want to see more of? How full are your lanes? If your lane capacity, if you're basically at 80% plus every day and you have no problem booking regular patients, it's probably time to think about other kinds of patients. If you are not even ranking that well for very basic local searches like, optometrist near me, eye doctor near me, eye exam in San Diego, whatever the search term is, and I'm going to show you how to search for these kinds of things and get a good sense of where you're standing. I would start there, start up talking about general optometric care, pad out your bio page, talk about eye care in general, talk about what's special about your eye clinic. These can be very basic in theory, but just developing that just a little bit is going to go a long way. And you also want to start thinking about what's the revenue per patient. If you're already ranking really, really well for locally, hyper locally for, eye exams, then you can broaden that. And I'm going to jump into that a little bit down the line here. But basically a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is people are not going to travel more than, especially in an urban area, more than about 10, 15 minutes for an eye exam, comprehensive eye exam. But if they're going for something specialized, that broadens. The more specialized, the more you can broaden that area. So if you're really a specialist in diabetic eye care or glaucoma treatment, people will travel further. If you're offering something like scleral lens fittings, specialized dry eye, vision therapy, neurooptometry, people will travel between towns, between cities to get there. So that's something to also keep in mind. Where is your money? Where would you like to see more revenue come from? What kind of patient do you want? And you start there.
Love it.
So, I've already sort of gone over all this, but, the way you're going to draw in general optical or specialty patients is going to drive how you're articulating your content and what topics to start with. And one of the beautiful things about content, I should mention, that's really, really distinctive from, let's say, paid ads, is paid ads stop delivering the second you stop paying into it. It's old news. Content, you're not paying into it, but it adds value over time, and the authority and domain authority and wealth and value of that content on your website continues to grow over time. So the more time you're at, and longer you're adding content, the more overall the value will just keep increasing for your practice. It never becomes, it's never obsolete, so to speak, unless people change drastically how they're searching for things, which can happen, and then we'll just adjust like everything else. But for now, I don't see that happening anytime on the horizon. So if you're interested in checking how you rank for any search term in your area, there's a great tool on Bright Local. It's just their local search results checker. Here's the link right here. And the reason you don't want to just use your own Google search is it is not what's called a clean search. It's it'll prioritize results based on your previous search history, places you've been, where you are, versus where maybe your practice is. So all of that is gonna change and alter the results you're getting. You want a clean search to do some solid competitor analysis, look at where you're standing, whether it's optometrist near me or eye doctor near me or, scleral lens fitting in San Diego, whatever that is, you enter the term, you enter the location, and you can be very specific by zip, by town, by neighborhood, in a large urban center. And you really do want to keep it pretty local if you're in a very dense urban center, to get a good sense of where you're holding. And then you just check the search results. It's quite simple. It's a tool that we use as a company all the time when doing basic analysis of how you're doing. Again, think location, how far people are willing to travel. If you try to optimize for too many locations, you put too many location terms into your website for, let's say, general eye care, that actually waters down your results and makes you less reliable in the eyes of Google. However, if you're offering a specialized service, you can talk township, you can talk city versus neighborhood. And that's a major difference you should be aware of as you're doing this. And we're going to see some examples and sort of parse this out. And if you have any further questions, that's what I'm here for.
Sounds good.
So something that I think a lot of practices might be surprised to learn is the #1 most visited inner page, meaning the #1 top visited page after the homepage itself is your doctor bio. That is an amazingly great place to start if it's thin on content. Talk about what drew you to practice. What is it about eye care and optometry that you love? What's your vision for the patient experience? Not only is that going to boost your SEO because it's got lots of great keywords in there, not only is that a chance to talk about the location, how you want to serve the local community, but it's a chance to really engage with potential patients on a human-to-human level. People want to know who their doctor is going to be. They want to know about you. It absolutely matters. All too often, I see a terrible headshot with just where you graduated from school and maybe the name of your dog, and that's about it. But that can be expanded on beautifully to be a pretty engaging, website piece of content that's good for your SEO, it's good for your branding, and it's good to ultimately convert patients to pick up the phone or book online, and that's what we want to be doing. So I'm going to open a question, up. And I wonder if, it might surprise you what the most commonly searched for optometric term is. Matt, do you want to take a gander at that?
The most commonly searched for optometric term. That's a good one. So you're saying by consumers on Google,
Yep.
as it relates to what we're talking about here.
Yep.
I log right into our SEO software and pull it up, but this thing's taking over my full screen. I'm going to go with pink eye. Pink eye.
That is a great guess because it is 100% correct.
Really?
Oh yeah. Pink
eye
is...
this was not planned. I'll tell you actually the background for this story in a minute, but go ahead.
Well, pink eye is overwhelmed. It's so common. It's so common and everyone is concerned. Parents are concerned. What is it? When do I need to see the eye doctor? Should I see an eye doctor? Should I see my GP? What's the best way to go about this? It is absolutely, greater than eye exam, greater than optometrist, greater than those very basic terms is pink eye. And yet you wouldn't believe how few practices have expansive content on the topic of pink eye. So that would be what I call the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
There are things that very few of your competitors in the area have real content on. And if you're providing that content, you will hands down dominate local searches. Most practices put this on a list and they're like, oh yeah, we treat conjunctivitis. Well, okay. Most people aren't searching for conjunctivitis. That's another point. But let's talk about that. Eye emergencies, when we have a practice that is killing the local searches for basic terms, eye exam, eye doctor, and they're like, well, we'd still like to see more new patients coming in the pipeline, general patients typically. The first thing our marketing managers will suggest to them in terms of the content we're going to add for their website is eye emergencies, because very few practices have content at all for eye emergencies, and they happen all the time. People want to know, and you can break that up into whole sorts of smaller subsections of information. When do you see your eye doctor versus when should you go to the ER? When shouldn't you go to the ER? What's the benefit of seeing, your optometrist? What do you do when you have a scratched eye? Well, what do you do when you spill chemicals in your eye? People search for this stuff in the moment all the time, and they're a little bit in a panic. And when they find something that's relatively close, that say, we take emergency calls, we'll try to fit you if it's an emergency patient. They will call you, even if their eye doctor is closer. You've got the page on it. You came up on a Google search, they will call you. We see this time and time again. And doctors report with a bit of surprise, like, these guys are really, really loyal patients. You help them out in a bind, they'll come back and come back. They will likely become your patient for regular eye care.
So question on that one, Zvi, like,
Sure.
what should be on that page? Is it just a paragraph about it? Is it an article? Is it a case study? Is it a video? I mean, how can ODs out there build these pages to rank better?
So video is extremely powerful, and we're going to get into that because video should absolutely be part of your content strategy, and it isn't hard or expensive the way maybe it used to do decently well.
Got it.
But you do want to mix. I would say having a basic page on eye emergencies, what they are, what constitutes an eye emergency, how to contact you, and then break it down by commonly searched topics, subsections within that. Scratched eye, conjunctivitis, you've got floaters, you're not sure what that's about, what should you do? Stuff that you probably answer on a fairly regular basis in the lane. It's just a matter of committing that to the written word, and a little bit of a video can do wonders for your online visibility for that. So, if you search eye emergencies in your area, I think you'll be surprised how few practices have any kind of comprehensive content on that at all. So, there's that joke, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your friend. So it's kind of the same with SEO content locally. I mean, if no one is doing it, even a little bit will put you over the edge. The problem is someone will come along and do it. So you might as well do it right. The same goes for anything you want to see more of. You want to do more diabetic treatment. It's something you feel like you really offer something extra for, talk about it. Why is it different? Why, what should a diabetic patient do before the exam? Why should they let you know that they have diabetes? How is that going to affect the exam? Basic questions that people don't know. And usually, with the case of diabetes, it can infuriate the practice when they don't tell you, and then they show up and, they're got high blood sugar and the refractive exam is off, and all of that can happen. Having that information out there is also great to make that easier on you. You can always, refer to your website as a learning resource as well, the more you load it up with content. So, and this touches on, a key point is that when it comes to, let's say, eye emergencies or vision therapy, no one is necessarily searching, pink eye rather. People aren't searching for the term conjunctivitis. That's not a daily term. You want content to be professional and represent your craft 100%, but it is also important to reference the layman's terms because people are not searching conjunctivitis, they're searching pink eye. Make sure that's appearing, particularly in headings, but in general, talk about pink eye as a general term, explain the different kinds of conjunctivitis that, generally people mean when they say pink eye. Something like vision therapy is even more complex. You've really got to break it down into every possible, permutation of potential patient, even if it's all vision therapy or neurooptometry. People aren't searching for those terms. They're searching for what's specific to them. So it could be treatment for strabismus. It could be I'm dizzy after a concussion. Those would need separate content pages. And specialty, optometric medical specialties do get a lot more sophisticated. So here's an example, just like you asked, Matt, of what an eye emergency page, would look like. You break it down into sub areas. Is pink eye dangerous? I've scratched my eye. What do I do? Do I need to go to the emergency room? Or is it better to see you? And just having that basic information out there builds a nice page. And again, layman's technology. Here's a nice breakdown again in the vision therapy. We're quite passionate about VT marketing over at iCare Pro, and I personally work with it a lot, developing the content strategies for it. So here's, but this map would apply to any optometric specialty or any optometric service at all in terms of breaking it down. So, if in terms of developmental optometry, talk about learning and vision and talking about dyslexia and reading and vision, talking about then you can, once you've caught the person's search, because they're searching about their kid's problem with reading, then you can talk about how well you should get them, a full assessment to see how well their visual processing is, and that there's more to vision than the refractive exam. And here's why, and here's what vision therapy is about. Here's what neurooptometry is about, and here how it can potentially help. And that's how you draw in the patient, engage, inform, establish your own expertise, and then convert into a patient. And all of this is building a strong brand, a strong practice about the things that you're passionate about. And again, as I've been saying all along, location matters. Here's a bit from an eye emergency page. And here you can, because there's going to be fewer content and less competition, here you can absolutely list all the towns that make sense. Realistically, no one is going to drive 6 hours for a pink eye, but they might drive 35 minutes if their kid has a bad case and they want someone to see them. So, think in those terms. And, this is just an excerpt of, an eye emergency page that is fairly basic and yet highly effective. This practice brings in probably about 15 eye emergency patients a month. They often then become general patients, and that's revenue, and that's building up your practice.
How does someone know that that page is working, right? Say like they started. How do they know that there's a difference? I mean, they can maybe just ask the front desk staff, hey, how many emergencies are coming in? But that could just be, correlated and, how do they know?
Yeah. So there's different answers to that question, depending on how technical you want to get in. You should, if you're really taking the marketing of your practice seriously, you should be using like Google Analytics, or if you're using a marketing company to help you out, be looking at your reports. What pages are getting traction? What's the change? What pages are getting direct landings, meaning their search is taking them directly to that page versus finding it through the hub, through the homepage. But generally, anecdotally, just my own experience working with clients, they're, when they have a company that's taking care of the stuff for them, they'll just tell you the next time they're speaking, hey, since you've put on those pages, we've been seeing a ton more eye emergency, cases. It doesn't come out of nowhere. You're right. It's in that case more correlation, but there aren't many other causation factors going on other than, we added a bunch of content about eye emergencies. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think knowledge is power, and the more engaged you are in your own data, the more, even if you're working with a marketing company, the more engaged you can be and collaborative you can be in really building that up. So
right.
It's always great to work with, an OD who's really diving into the numbers.
Love it.
So let's talk a little bit. This is a question probably everyone is familiar with, and it touches on the quality of content and how we can spruce that up. Which is better, one or two. Here's a fairly basic page on myopia control. Recently, we have stopped, in the last year and a half, we now call it myopia management due to FDA issues, but you get the point. Here's a basic page. It's a wall of text. It's got a nice little image, and it does something. It definitely has value, particularly in a context where no one else is talking about it and you want to reach parents. It's definitely not the most powerful page in the world. It's entry level is how I would describe that. But if you compare that to a page like this, here's different snapshots of it, where you're talking about the issues at hand. Your child's prescription seems to get worse. What are the treatments that are available? And of course, we're embedding video into here. And video makes a huge difference for the amount of information you're able to get across and the effectiveness of getting that across. It just works on so many levels, on the SEO level and on the patient experience of your website level. It builds up your expertise. It makes you more relatable. It is just hands down the gold standard of content, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And here's why. Rather than, as probably everyone of you knows, learning is profoundly visual. So a visual message in the form of a video is just far more memorable. So generally studies show that video you retain, there's different studies. Here we have 95. It ranges between 80 to 95% of material in a video is retained versus 10% in text. That's pretty solidly backed up by research, as is the conversion rate of a landing page. The conversion rate of a landing page is sometimes 6 times higher if you have a video on it. And that doesn't matter whether you're selling widgets or you're an eye doctor. And I would argue that the eye doctor, it's even more crucial because you have to, particularly if we're going beyond just, I want a comprehensive exam, you need to, express a little bit about what, the patient experience, the information you're talking about, build trust right away. And something else to keep in mind is video is powerful on multiple fronts, and it's easy to do. So what's one of the reasons it's on multiple fronts? Well, if you're posting it to YouTube, Google is indexing that. So you have some tags, you have a description, you have a link back to your website. All of that is great for your SEO. On a local search, then you have a chance for your video to show up on the search as well, pushing your competitors yet further down the page and having more means for people to find your practice. And the other is that one of the other reasons it's great for your SEO is that you can actually use it on multiple fronts. So I'll get into that a little bit. But one of the things to keep in mind is video today is really easy. You don't need to hire a production company and spend 20 grand. What you need is a decent cell phone. Anything from the iPhone 7 and up is phenomenal. And a $15 tripod gets you going already with phenomenal video. And I want to stress that no one is looking for polished, suave, Hollywood level production values. It actually works more in your favor to be the practitioner that you are. As a dork who markets optometry, I can tell you that doesn't hurt you at all to be that dork as long as you're owning it, being a little awkward, but really having that passion and subject matter expertise is really what's going to convey your passion and your authenticity to potential patients. So that's, and then you can leverage it in so many ways. So here we have a screenshot of a bunch of testimonial videos that a practice is putting up about people's experience with scleral lenses and how it's improved them for a whole bunch of reasons. But you can then take that video and stick it on YouTube, as I've mentioned, which boosts your Google listings. You can also put it on social media. And one of the great things you can do from Google is get a transcription of the video that you can then put alongside the video or in a subpage of a video, and that then acts as written content to boost your SEO. The only word of warning is don't embed too many videos on a single page because it will slow that page right down, and page speed is an important factor for ranking and for bounce rate. So that's what you can do with video. And I just want to circle back to reviews, because as we saw in those search results, it's one of the first things that people are seeing. And again, I'm going to stress, a lot of practices stress about their Yelp reviews or their Facebook reviews, but no one is fine. They might engage with you after the fact with these. And social media certainly has an important role for growing your practice, but where your most effort, the most bang for the minimum effort is here in Google. And so it's Google reviews that really, really count, because people see it before they choose potentially which practice they're going to go with. Yelp is decreasingly relevant. Maybe for restaurants, it's a different story, but certainly in eye care, it's Google in terms of the overall traffic it's driving. So you want to make sure that your Google reviews are good. And, it all kind of coalesces. You've got great content, you deliver great patient experience, you're leaving an impression of a brand. People are therefore more likely to be engaged with you and to leave reviews. And this does also tie back into SEO. Google reviews are listed on your Google My Business card. It used to be connected with Google Plus. That's now defunct. Thank God. That was a major failure. Don't worry about Google Plus because it hasn't mattered. It never mattered. But Google reviews, because they're built into your Google My Business, the more you're getting, that's called signals traffic. And that goes into your factors in terms of your overall search rankings, particularly when people are mentioning the services. You should never mention their services. HIPAA is very important. Never explicitly get into a conversation with a good or bad review about what services someone received. But if people are mentioning how great you were with a given issue fitting contact lenses, that's going to boost you for searches related to contact lenses. That's just how Google works. Mm-hmm. So getting lots of reviews is going to convince more people to choose you, and it's also going to boost your rankings. And that's what I got. We touched on a lot of connected topics, from branding to making videos. So we do have a lot of ebooks on our website, and I do encourage any of you to check them out, download them. They're 100% free. And hopefully you can, get a little bit more insight on how to do more SEO, how to do more content, how to get more Google reviews, and how to make video. And
Do
yeah.
you, yeah, that was excellent. That was excellent. I've got a couple of questions, and hopefully I can ask them on behalf of folks out there who may be thinking the same thing. I remember when I was starting in practice, my schedule wasn't full, so it made sense for me to figure a lot of this out and kind of do some of it myself. But there's definitely some pretty technical stuff that I couldn't achieve or do. What should a what should a doc kind of delegate to staff? What should a doc delegate to themselves? And what should a doc delegate to a company like you guys? I mean, where should that split be? Because if they try to take on the whole project, I think they're going to be pretty overwhelmed. I mean, I get marketing pretty well, and it's not a easy task to complete this entire thing. Granted, it doesn't need to be completed in a weekend. It's a forever kind of exercise, but where should they delegate and to who?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's a complex one too. And it
Mhm.
does differ widely practice to practice. So, I mean, generally our aim as a company is to help practices help more patients without having to do all this legwork. And it does take energy and effort. That being said, we do have, and any of our competitors as well, have different sort of levels of service. And so it depends what you're looking to get out of it. Rigorous content strategy is something that can be time consuming. But if you've got a basic SEO plan and you love to write, that can serve you just as well if you're making videos and uploading content. The problem is you've got to actually follow through with it and provide that to whomever is managing your SEO. So it's always going to be this question about time and value. You want to, if you're going to work with a company, choose someone who's really committed to that ROI, that's transparent, that they're reporting, and that they're actually giving you that content on a regular basis, and that it's localized to you. If I can, if I can expand on that a little bit further, it also depends on the kinds of patients you want to get. If you're not in a highly competitive area, you don't need to do as much. That's just the nature of capitalism.
Mhm.
If you're in a very complex and dense urban environment where there's just a ton of practices in Southern California
Right.
has no shortage of ODs.
Mhm.
Then it's about differentiation. Then you've got to think about either I want to have the hands down the best local SEO for general optometry, or I'm going to branch out into other low-hanging fruit like emergencies, or I want to work on my optometric specialties that there's less competition for because I'm a scleral lens expert and I really want that kind of patient. And there, your content is going to be, your kind of strategy is going to be quite different. But again, you always want to make sure that your website and the content is being maximally optimized. And in that sense, it definitely does pay in either sense to use someone who's an expert at doing that in terms of your return on investment. If you're struggling and you're not ready to make that commitment, though, it's not a barrier to getting things started. And some content is infinitely better than no content.
Right. Right. Would you say that should a doc think about, or the practice owner, or really whoever's handling this, should they think about, I need to just find a bunch of topics to fill my blog, and this is more about what topics do I write about? I need new things, or is it more of just, we just want to have great content on, say, these three things and these three things only? Or should it be like, just need to write more blog articles, quality over quantity type of question?
Generally, quality is better than quantity nowadays in the SEO sphere. Having tons and tons of fairly repetitive blogs is not going to do you many favors.
Hmm.
Google does penalize duplicate content, so
Right.
you do want to be careful. But we always recommend that you develop the content that's important to you as a practice.
Hmm.
If seeing this specific kind of patient matters to you as a practice, or it's an important growth area for your practice, that's where you should focus on. And no topic is going to be, you're never going to exhaust it. There's so many things you can say, at a more and more and more granular level, that if you really, really want to focus on, let's say, an optometric medical specialty, you can talk about that, particularly something like vision therapy. You can talk about that over thousands of pages and
Hmm.
videos, literally, because it has so many permutations of potential audience that would benefit from learning about it and getting that service. And even emergencies, you can get pretty in depth try to remove something at home, and when do you choose to then go to the OD, and when and how, and what's the best advice. That alone is that could be quite a bit. Start big and then get more granular is how we would always recommend it.
Okay, got it. What if someone just like their website's not good, it's not ready to support this, they want to go in that direction, but they can't even think about, let's just say their website's not mobile responsive, their homepage is not so good looking. I mean, they're not even at this level. How do they take care of some of the more fundamental problems? What do you need to have in place first? Like, what if they say, I don't even have Google reviews. I don't even know if I show up on Google, period. I mean, does that warrant, can they handle that themselves? Is there something simple they can do? Should they just call you guys? What do you think?
Well, I mean, at the risk of tooting my own horn, it's definitely easier to call someone that's their expertise.
Right.
We at iCarePro exclusively work in optometric marketing. It's all we do, and we're quite good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But at a minimum, you do need a website that has enough basic content, enough optimization, and is mobile optimized enough that Google's going to even notice that you exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you absolutely need to work on proactively asking people to leave a review on Google. That's crucial. So we have a great app that our clients get, that they're able to text the client while they're still in the practice after asking them if they, did you have a great experience with the eye doctor today? Yeah, I'm great. We're so glad to hear that. We're sending you a
Right.
text. If you don't mind, follow the link and leave us a great review on Google.
Mm-hmm.
That works great. But even if you're diligent there, only 1 out of 5 are actually going to follow through. And that's with an app so it takes constant proactivity to build those reviews. That's something you definitely want to get staff help with. And staff can help on all sorts of things. You asked about that before. Content about the latest frame lines, content about all sorts of things where it's not you weighing in with your optometric authority, so to speak, as the doctor. People like the doctor to weigh in on things that the doctor should weigh in on. That's all great. But to take it back to this question, you do need someone who is, unless you're decent at building websites, and again,
Right.
it comes down to time, you need an optimized website to at least host this content. Better yet, you're optimizing the content itself for SEO. That's something that we as an SEO optometry marketing company do really well. And but it comes down to, our goal is to give the tools that anyone could do this. But the question, the limiting factor is time.
Do you
And
think,
doctors are busy people.
yeah, do you think these docs are late to the game if they're starting now? And at what point will they be too late?
Well, I don't think there's a question of too late, because practices start up all the time, and they can if you're doing things right, you can very quickly establish a strong online presence, because
Right.
at the end of the day, it's hyper local. Putting aside sort of more sophisticated treatments, just people searching for a local optometrist is very local. And then there are ways to put yourself head and shoulders above even those who are local. Again, Google reviews, just solid entry-level SEO is a great way to just get yourself up there pretty quickly onto, the upper echelons of page 1 on a search result. Then you sort of need to examine, well, I can't seem to get past this third organic slot. I'm certainly not making it into the map results. How do I get there? Then you've got to you need more content. That's what Google wants.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to boost you. But you got to have the basics in place to even be showing up at all.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Is there anything else you want to show us? Are there any examples, shining examples, where you go poke around Google, see who's doing what? I don't know if that's probably outside the plan here, but anything else you want to go for? I think we've got just a couple minutes.
Well, are there no questions from the floor? Because now is a great time to ask.
Yeah, no, I don't see any coming in. For those that may have any questions, just click the chat bubble here and just go ahead and ask. But I don't see any coming up at the
Wonderful.
moment. Yeah.
At the risk of
Yeah.
starting to explore my browser, next time I'll definitely include more examples. I think
Sure.
that would be useful. But if anyone wants, a tour of sort of what a different offering would look like in terms of the type of content you're getting, I'd be more than happy to show that around. Generally, the most content-rich clients of ours are in the OD specialty realm, which is specific for marketing optometric specialties like vision therapy, dry eye, ortho K. And there you've got to have a broad content strategy because you're introducing to people topics they're not even searching for. If you're
Right.
not searching for vision therapy, well, then how do you capture relevant searches? Well, then
Right.
you need a page about every relevant search that people might be making. So that can get pretty broad. So those clients get a ton of content for every specialty. I see some questions coming in, by the way.
Yeah. Does specifically posting on social media mean anything to
Mm-hmm.
Google? From Emily.
So that's an interesting question. It's important to have a basic, from a Google perspective, it's important to have a basic presence on Facebook, let's say. Instagram is a plus. There are important uses for those, but in terms of SEO and search rankings, it's fairly secondary. Um, from a branding and education perspective, social media is very, very important. Instagram, if you're an optical practice, very optically focused practice, Instagram becomes very important. And there's cool things you can do with Instagram. But I'll sort of draw you back to that graph I had at the beginning. You've got to choose where to put the most effort for the most gain for the least amount of time and money, and that's going to be SEO. But definitely social media should be part of your marketing strategy.
Yeah, and posts will show up, specifically Facebook posts, in organic search results. So, I think the algorithms will look at this and potentially, I would argue, as the Google algorithm attempts to become more human, which is 100% the way to think about this. Those things will probably start to matter more. So it can't hurt, but I would agree. It isn't necessarily the place you want to focus because it's not going to give you the leverage that something like creating content on optimized pages would. So think about those social posts. How do you bring them into your website and expand upon them in a way? If you're posting a video, bring that video, on a particular topic to that page and make it something that, more patients can benefit from broadly, perhaps. It's a great
Absolutely.
question.
Absolutely. And going live with video content, which you can then later take that video and put it on YouTube and put it on your website. Going live on Facebook actually gives you great exposure because anyone who's engaged with your page in the past will get a little sign that says, so-and-so practice is going live, and that draws a ton of viewers and is a great way to get engagement. So especially you have 10, 15 minutes and you want to talk about some topic that's dear to your heart in optometry, Facebook Live is a great way to do it.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I think this was excellent. Any other questions, feel free to ask them. How can folks get in touch with you or your team?
Well, you go to our website, eyecarepro.com, and there we've got EyeCare Pro University is probably the world's largest repository of optometric marketing know-how in one place. We've got webinars you can watch, lots of ebooks. You can read through our blogs. And if you want to talk to us, it's really easy. Go to contact us or get started. And you can also reply to well, I guess the emails are through you now this time, but generally
We'll forward them over.
Forward them over. That's not going to be a problem. And I'm happy to speak to any one of you. I don't actually work I work in the content side of things, but I'm more than happy to talk optometry marketing anytime, any place.
Love it. Thank you for all the knowledge. We really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to us. You can contact me, Matt, at covalentcareers.com. Head over to EyeCare Pro, and then do a little Google search on some of the things we talked about today to see who's ranking in your area for eye care emergencies or pink eye and things like that. And that'll surely light the fire under you to be like, whoa, I didn't know that Dr. Smith up the street was doing that. I've got to get on it. So that'll be a great call to action. And I wish everyone the best of luck on their content journey.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Yeah. Appreciate it and talk to you soon. Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.